Hey guys, welcome to the studio. Today is another full music production day, and today is the day every single week where I listen to all of your demos. We get plenty of demos, like over 200 per week for my label and also for feedback. So if you're interested to send in your songs as a demo or for feedback, first link in the description. Today we'll go through probably 10 songs that we got submitted, and I'll let you know on each and every single song the one thing that I would improve to get it to the next level, and this way cover probably like the most common mixing mistakes in electronic dance music.
But take it farther. I'm breathing underwater.
First song by Maxwell called Drive Me Crazy. Nice, funky influenced kind of electronic dance music song. I generally like it, but I think the number one thing that I would change and that I think could take it to the next level is fixing the mid frequencies. You can see in the analyzer there's a lot going on, maybe too much. Electronic dance music is usually more like heavy on the low frequencies, lower mids, like the upper bass kind of part, than the actual mids that you focus on in pop music, or at least in pop music from like 20 years ago, because they also now focus more on the lower mids. There is too much going on. We have like a main synthesizer, we have some strings, some other elements, some pads, a lot of sustained things. I think it makes more sense to have that space emptied out by a lot more and have just one element in there that like just fills that frequency part, and that is like the main driving thing of the song to make it work. Next up, by Marcus Lindholm, Fracas Original. This one right here has the right elements, it has the right amount of elements, so it's not too much, not too little, but the frequency response of the entire track is a little skewed and like awkward. Maybe he's mixing in a room that isn't acoustically treated, maybe the experience isn't there yet. Like I would, the kick, I would exchange the kick, then increase the bass a little, and the top frequencies are missing entirely. There are some hats coming in later in the mix, and they were way too low. So try to listen to other people's songs and just try to mimic how loud are the high frequencies, how much mid frequencies are in there, how much of the low end is in there, how much kick, how much bass, the ratio between those two. I think if you just like pull all of the faders on this song down again, and just like increase the elements by the right amount to get a balanced mix, this could sound at least 50% better. And a huge compliment for like the LFO automation before the drop, really like that. Next up, by Chaval Palavane. Very loud mix, very stereo, maybe both, a little too much for electronic dance music. You want to keep like the mid section in check to have enough punch, especially in the club. Frequency response, again here a little, like there's too much mid frequencies, too much low frequencies, and too much high frequencies, and in between we have like two dips. You can clearly see it in the analyzer. Fill them out with like different elements, or reduce the mid element in the song, which is the main element. I think it's not strong enough. I think this should be replaced with another sound that like makes the track rememberable, because so far it's more like an instrumental that actually needs vocals, but for the vocals there's no space because we have that main element, but the main element doesn't really convince me. So I would change that, the sound of it. Next up, by Parify's Voy do Soma, 124 BPM. That should be club. I think so far the best. One mistake, or one thing I would change immediately. There is a sub bass, a Sine sub bass that isn't really a sub bass. It plays an octave too high. If you like listen to it, there is the sub bass. Like, let me play it again. Like in this little break, you can actually see in the analyzer that the sub bass is between 100 and 200 hertz, and that's too high for a Sine sub. A Sine sub bass should be very close to the kick, like between, I don't know, 30 and maybe 80 hertz, maybe 100, but not 100 to 200, because then a Sine sub bass sounds very, very, very boring. And it's a place in a song where you can't be boring. It's the most exciting part, like the upper bass section. So I would lower the sub bass by 1 octave, like dial it down in volume, just that it gives you like that little rumble underneath of the kick, and double that one with a higher bass that has some tone, some grit, something to it. I think it's too boring just having a Sine for the upper bass. Next up, by Meister 101 Pulsations. Here, a very simple fix, the hi-hats. It's like too much high frequencies. The hi-hats are just too loud, especially for club music. You have to imagine this being played in a club at 110 decibels. Those hi-hats will kill your ear. Lower them. And if you lower the top frequency part, the low frequency part will sound like there's more of it, because your ear compares those two. By Shizarani and Maoli, Crazy About Your Love. Good, a little too hectic and too full for my personal taste, but I'm a very calm and chilled person. And also here we have like a shift towards like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8K. There's a little too much in that almost very top end. It's like the higher in frequency, the louder, and usually club music is more the opposite of that. It's a little like, I think that's also what makes it a little stressful. There's like too much of those kind of frequencies going on and a little too many elements at the same time. Again, for my taste. I mean, I know there's a lot of music out there that is very hectic and stressful with a lot of like tiny elements in there. Not my thing. I like it minimal, clear. So let's listen to Patrick Maxwell's Deep Inside.
I got some loving deep inside.
Very good. By far today the best. This is release worthy. I like it. Really like it. It's nothing fancy, it's nothing like extra special, but if you're just starting out making music, that's what you should aim for, like a solid good club track. Kick and bass ratio is alright. Maybe another kick sample, but the one that was chosen is good. It works. Like the ratios between all of the elements are there and alright. The main element is just like this one groove, which is enough for club music. There is enough automation, enough excitement. I really like that. I think I will ride Patrick and try and help him to get this out on a label. I think this should be released. So I'll make sure this gets released if he's interested. No, really good. And using like this old school house inspired vocal works, always works. Next up by Tommy Vega, Eternity. Not bad, darker techno influenced song. I'd say number one mistake here is like the separation between the elements, especially kick and bass, more sidechaining and like choosing either like the kick being the main driver in the low end or the bass. It's right now both, and that usually doesn't really work. And the song is too quiet. Make sure to like make it loud enough on your master. Don't fully master it like a mastering engineer, that's not like really necessary, but put a limiter on top, drive that enough so that it's like comparable loud to other songs, especially when you send it out as a demo, because loudness still affects our like perception of good or bad in a pretty big way. This one by Fluffy Beanie Feet, likes the Bacon theme version 1.3. Sounds very muddy. I'd say EQing, separating the elements, low cuts on everything, reconsidering the individual elements. It's like all like it's muddy. It's all together. It's glued together, but not in a good way. You want to hear like the separate elements. You want to hear the kick cut through the mix. You want to hear the bass cut through an audible, the main element. And here it's all very, very mushy. Check all of your reverbs again. EQ the reverbs. EQ the low end of every individual track. And make sure everything is like separated in frequencies. Have the kick usually around 45 to 55 hertz. Then the bass above it and separate them. Then the upper bass, again, separated, like have every element like in its like frequency niche, and make sure that every frequency niche is just occupied by one element. The higher you go in frequencies, the more elements you can actually put together, but still for club music, like one element at a time is usually sounding the best. So anyways, thanks all for watching. If you're interested to submit your songs, it's linked down below in the description. Just fill out the form, send it over. We'll listen to it, consider it as a demo for the label, and also maybe showcase it on the next episode of Track Submits. Tune in tomorrow. Very important day, studio construction continuing. The entire day, just constructing, constructing, constructing.